Marcus had 3 days to assess the estate, find a buyer, and get back to London. The neighbor who showed up on day one with work gloves and no patience for city logic was not part of the plan. The taxi slowed long before it reached the gate, tires crunching over gravel that hadn't been properly maintained in years. Marcus noticed everything automatically. The uneven surface, the brittle, gray brush, the way the sun-scorched land had started cracking where it used to be controlled. The path beyond stretched toward the house, cracked and uneven, the dry earth splitting between the stones like it was gasping for air. He walked slowly, not because he wanted to, but because the ground forced him to. Every step demanded attention. Every step dragged something up from memory, whether he liked it or not. Halfway down the path, he stopped. He hadn't meant to. His gaze shifted slightly to the left, an old tree, larger than the rest. He knew it instantly. Climbed it once. Fell out of it once. His father had laughed first, then yelled after. Marcus exhaled sharply, almost annoyed. Pointless, he muttered. All of it. He forced himself forward again. The house came into full view, and this time he didn't look away. Lucers. The name barely registered anymore, just a label tied to paperwork and valuation reports. The walls were worn, paint chipped, shutters misaligned. It wasn't ruined, just neglected. Waiting, maybe. He didn't like that thought. Not my concern, he said quietly, like he needed to hear it out loud. He reached the front door and stood there for a second too long. His hand hovered near the handle. He could feel it, the hesitation. Subtle, but there. That old instinct telling him this wasn't just another property. He felt a familiar tension behind his ribs, the physical rejection of a place he'd tried to forget. It's a transaction, he said firmly, and pushed the door open. The smell hit him instantly. Dust, wood, time. The kind of air that hadn't moved properly in years. He stepped inside, suitcase wheels dragging behind him with a hollow sound that echoed through the empty space. His eyes adjusted quickly, scanning without emotion. Structure intact. Furniture old, but usable. Minor repairs needed. He moved through the room like he was assessing an asset, not returning to a place that once defined him. Could be worse, he said quietly. He walked toward the living room, fingers brushing briefly against the back of a chair. The contact was accidental, but it lingered longer than necessary. He pulled his hand away immediately. Don't, he muttered to himself. He moved on. The kitchen was next. Smaller than he remembered. Or maybe he had just outgrown it. The table was still there. Same position. Same scratches. He stared at it for a second, then shook his head. This is irrelevant, he said, sharper now. Focus. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and checked the signal. Weak, but usable. That was enough. Emails loaded slowly. Messages stacked. Reminders of everything waiting for him outside this place. Deadlines. Payments. Pressure. That was real life. Not this. He locked the phone and slipped it back into his pocket. A faint noise came from somewhere deeper in the house. A creak, soft but distinct. Marcus froze, head turning slightly. He listened. Nothing. Just the building settling. Still viable, he admitted under his breath. Then his gaze shifted. A wooden crate sat a few meters away. Tools inside. Clean. Recently used. Marcus straightened slowly, eyes fixed on it. Okay. That's not neglect, he said. He walked closer, inspecting it without touching anything at first. Everything about it suggested routine. Maintenance. Presence. Someone had been here. Recently. His expression hardened slightly. Who? He asked quietly, more to himself than anything else. He turned, scanning the surrounding land, then glanced back toward the house. For the first time since arriving, something shifted in him. Not emotion, not yet. Awareness. This wasn't going to be as simple as signing papers and leaving. He exhaled slowly, tension settling into his shoulders. Still doesn't change anything, he said, firmer now. 3 days. The wind moved through the trees again, stronger this time, leaves rustling in a way that almost sounded deliberate. Marcus stood there, unmoving, eyes fixed on the grove. 3 days, he repeated, quieter. Marcus didn't sleep much that night. The house made sure of it. Every sound carried, wood shifting, pipes ticking, the occasional distant creak that felt just deliberate enough to keep him aware of where he was. By the time the sun pushed through the thin curtains, he was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open and a half-finished cup of coffee gone cold beside him. Numbers grounded him. Always had. He stared at the documents on the screen, scrolling slowly, jaw tightening with each line. That doesn't make sense, he muttered. He refreshed, checked again, opened another file. Same result. Debt. Not small. Not manageable. Not something that could be ignored or quickly absorbed into a clean sale. Marcus leaned back slightly, fingers pressing against his lips. What the hell were you doing? He said under his breath, not angry. Not yet. More confused than anything else. There were records of loans, maintenance costs, equipment purchases that didn't align with the visible state of the farm, delayed payments, interest stacking in ways that suggested time had been running out long before he arrived. He closed the laptop halfway, then opened it again immediately. No, he said quietly. There's a reason. He went through everything again, slower this time. Patterns started forming. Not reckless spending, not incompetence. Something else. Investments into the land itself. Soil treatment. Irrigation adjustments. Tree restoration cycles. Marcus leaned back, the weight of the discovery grounding him more than the cold coffee ever could. He was trying to keep it alive, he said. Not profitable. Alive. That changed the equation. But not the outcome. He leaned back again, this time fully, eyes lifting toward the ceiling. All right, he said after a moment, voice steadier now. Fine. Then we adjust. He reached for his phone, dialed quickly, and waited. Marcus, a sharp, familiar voice answered. I was expecting your update yesterday. I just got clarity, he replied, tone controlled. The situation is more complicated than expected. A pause. Define complicated. The farm is in debt. Significant debt. If I sell now in its current state, I won't cover everything. Another pause, shorter this time. Then you increase the value. Marcus almost smiled. That's the plan. Timeline, the voice asked. 3 weeks, he said. That's optimistic. It's necessary. Silence on the other end. Then, don't fail this, Marcus. The line went dead. He stared at the phone for a second, then set it down slowly. Not an option, he murmured. He closed the laptop, stood up, and grabbed his jacket. The sun was already high when he stepped outside again. The grove looked different in daylight, less nostalgic, more demanding, like it expected something from him now that he was here. Fine, he said quietly. Let's see what we're working with. He moved through the rows with more intention this time, not just observing but assessing. Branches, spacing, soil condition, irrigation lines. Everything got a quick, precise evaluation. The verdict was clear. Recoverable, but not alone. He stopped near the boundary again, eyes shifting toward the neighboring grove. It was still better, cleaner, more structured, more functional. Marcus exhaled slowly, tension settling into his shoulders. Of course, he muttered. A familiar voice cut in, closer this time. You're going to stare at it again, or actually say something? He turned. Elodie stood a few steps away on her side of the fence, holding a pair of pruning shears, her expression unreadable but not surprised. Marcus gave a small nod. Morning. She glanced briefly at the sun. It's almost noon. Still counts, he replied. A faint shift at the corner of her mouth. Almost a reaction, but not quite. He stepped closer to the fence, more deliberate this time. I went through the records, he said. And? She asked. He was in debt. I know. That stopped him for a second. You knew? I was there, she said simply. Marcus studied her for a moment. Then you also know I can't just ignore that. I didn't say you should, but you think selling is the wrong move. Yes. Direct. No hesitation. Marcus nodded slowly. Then give me a better one. That caught her off guard. Not visibly, but just enough. She adjusted her grip on the shears slightly. You don't want a better option, she said. You want a faster one. I want a viable one. You already have one, she replied. You just don't like it. Marcus let out a quiet breath. Which is? Fix it, she said. He gave a short, dry laugh. That's not a plan. That's a long-term commitment I don't have the luxury for. You have 3 weeks, don't you? She countered. His eyes narrowed slightly. You were listening. You weren't exactly quiet. Fair. Marcus glanced back at the grove, then at her. Even if I do that, I can't do it alone. No, she agreed. Another pause. He looked at her directly now. You've been maintaining part of this land. Yes. You know how it works? Yes. I need it operational before harvest. She didn't respond immediately this time. Her gaze shifted briefly toward his side of the grove, then back to him. Why would I help you sell it? She asked. Marcus didn't hesitate. Because if I don't increase its value, it gets taken anyway. By people who won't care about any of this. That landed. Her expression tightened slightly, not in anger, but in calculation. And you would? She asked. Marcus held her gaze. I would make sure it doesn't disappear. That's not the same as keeping it. No, he admitted. It's not. Silence stretched again, heavier this time. The wind moved through the trees, quieter now. Elodie looked down briefly, then back up. I'm not doing this for you, she said finally. I didn't expect you to. I'm doing it for him. Marcus nodded once. That's enough. She stepped closer to the fence, resting one hand lightly on it. You follow my lead on the land. He raised a brow. That's not how this works. It is if you want results. A beat. Marcus considered it, then gave a small, resigned nod. Fine. And you don't rush decisions while we're working, she added. That depends. It doesn't. Their eyes locked again, tension sharp but controlled. Then, unexpectedly, Marcus let out a quiet breath and nodded. All right. Elodie studied him for a second longer, as if testing whether he meant it. Then she turned slightly, gesturing toward the grove. Start with the east rows, she said. They're the weakest. Marcus glanced in that direction, then back at her. You're giving orders now? I'm giving you a chance, she replied. A faint, reluctant smile touched his lips. Same thing, apparently. He looked at the olives. This was about the liquid gold his father had traded his life to protect. She didn't respond to that. Marcus rolled up his sleeves slowly, stepping away from the fence and toward the trees. For the first time since arriving, he wasn't thinking about leaving. Not yet. By the third day, Marcus stopped checking the time every hour. Not because he had forgotten his deadline, but because the work refused to fit into neat blocks. The land didn't care about schedules. It responded to attention, consistency, and patience. 3 things he hadn't practiced in years. You're doing it wrong, Elodie said without looking at him. Marcus didn't even pause this time. That's becoming a pattern with you. You're cutting like you're afraid to commit. He watched her for a second, then folded his arms. I'm trying not to damage the tree. You're weakening it, she said. With a quick, precise motion, she cut deeper, cleaner. There. Now it grows properly. Marcus frowned slightly. That seems aggressive. It's necessary, she said. You remove what doesn't work so the rest survives. He held her gaze a second longer than needed. You say that about trees or people? She didn't answer, just handed the shears back. He took them quieter now. Show me again. That was the shift. Not dramatic, not obvious, but real. They worked side by side after that, the rhythm slowly aligning. Marcus stopped questioning every instruction. Elodie stopped correcting every movement. The tension didn't disappear. It changed. Less resistance, more awareness. At midday, they sat under one of the older trees, the shade thick enough to break the heat. Marcus leaned back against the trunk, breathing slower than he had since arriving. You always work like this? He asked. Yes. No breaks. This is a break. He let out a quiet huff of air, almost a laugh. Remind me not to sign up for your version of rest. You already did. He glanced at her. Temporarily. She didn't respond. Just took a sip from a metal bottle, then passed it to him without comment. He hesitated for a fraction of a second before taking it. Thanks. Their fingers brushed briefly. It wasn't accidental enough to ignore. Marcus took a sip, then handed it back, his movements a little slower now. You've been doing this alone? He asked. For a while. And before that? She shrugged lightly. With your father. He nodded once, eyes shifting to the trees. He didn't mention you. I didn't expect him to. That answer lingered. Marcus looked at her again, more directly this time. Why stay? He asked. If it's not yours. Elodie met his gaze without hesitation. Because someone had to. That's not a reason. That's a responsibility you chose. Yes. Why? A pause. Not long. Just enough. Because he didn't give up on it, she said. And I don't walk away from things that matter. Marcus held that for a second, something shifting quietly behind his expression, even when they're already falling apart. Especially then. He looked away first this time. Sounds exhausting, he said. It is. Another pause. Then, unexpectedly, Marcus said, quieter, I get that. She turned her head slightly, studying him. Do you? He didn't answer immediately. His gaze stayed on the grove, distant but focused. More than I used to, he said finally. The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was easier. They got back to work without needing to say it. By late afternoon, the lights softened, stretching longer shadows across the rows. Marcus wiped his hands on his shirt, stepping back to look at what they had done. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Not terrible, he said. Elodie glanced at him. For someone who almost killed 3 trees this morning. He smirked slightly. They survived. That's what matters. That's your standard? For now. She shook her head, but there was no real disapproval in it. A breeze moved through, cooler this time. Marcus rolled his shoulders slightly, tension easing in a way he didn't expect. You eat? She asked suddenly. He blinked once. That a question or an observation? An offer? Marcus hesitated. Not because he didn't understand, but because he did. That depends, he said. Is it part of the training? No. Then yes. That earned him the smallest hint of a smile. Fire pit, she said, nodding toward the edge of her property. After sunset. Marcus glanced in that direction, then back at her. You trust me not to mess that up too? It's harder to ruin food than trees, she replied. Good. I like my odds. The fire burned low and steady, casting warm light that softened everything around it. Marcus sat across from her, sleeves still rolled, hands cleaner, but not completely. It felt different. Not like London dinners. Not like anything structured or expected. Just real. He watched her for a moment as she adjusted something over the fire. You do this every night? He asked. Sometimes. Alone. Not always. He raised a brow slightly. That sounds intentionally vague. It is. He let that go. For a while, they ate in silence. Not uncomfortable. Just quiet. Then Marcus spoke again. You hate me, he said, almost casually. Elodie looked up at him, unimpressed. No. You strongly disagree with everything I'm doing. Yes. Close enough. It's not the same. He tilted his head slightly. Explain. She set her plate down, considering him for a moment. Hate is easy, she said. You don't matter enough for that. That should have annoyed him. It didn't. Good to know where I stand, he said lightly. You're still here, aren't you? A beat. Yeah, he admitted. The fire cracked softly between them. Marcus leaned back slightly, gaze lifting toward the darkening sky. This wasn't part of the plan, he said. No. No. What was? In, out, done. And now? He glanced at her again. A little too long. Now, he started, then stopped, adjusting slightly. Now it's different. Elodie didn't push. She didn't need to. The moment held on its own. Later, when the fire burned lower and the night settled fully around them, Marcus stood, brushing his hands together lightly. Same time tomorrow? He asked. Elodie met his gaze, steady. Yes. He nodded once, then turned to leave. He took a few steps before stopping, glancing back over his shoulder. She was still there, watching the fire. For a second, he almost said something. He didn't. Instead, he walked back toward the house, slower than before. Behind him, the firelight flickered. And for the first time in a long time, Marcus didn't feel like he was counting the days until he left. Marcus heard the car before he saw it. Not the soft, uneven sound of local vehicles on gravel, but something smoother, controlled, out of place here. He was halfway through checking the irrigation line when the engine cut, sharp and precise. He didn't turn immediately. He already knew who it was. You didn't mention you'd be entertaining guests, Elodie said from behind him, her tone neutral but edged with quiet awareness. Marcus exhaled slowly, straightening. I wasn't planning to. He turned. The car stood near the house, sleek, black, immaculate in a way that felt almost aggressive against the dust and sun-faded walls. The door opened, and Claire stepped out like she had never left London for a second. Tailored suit, perfect posture, unreadable expression. Nothing about her belonged here. And that was exactly the point. Well, she said, closing the door with a soft click, eyes already on Marcus. This is underwhelming. Marcus walked toward her, each step measured. Claire. She smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. Marcus. A brief pause as her gaze flicked past him toward the grove, then back. I expected updates, not silence. And don't think about your London portfolio, Marcus. In this market, liquidating those assets now would trigger a 50% loss in tax penalties alone. The farm is the only clean exit you have left that doesn't end in total bankruptcy. I was working, he replied. That's new. The words were light. The intention wasn't. Marcus stopped a few steps away from her. You didn't need to come here. I disagree, she said calmly. Given the scale of your situation, I think I very much did. Elodie approached slowly, stopping just behind Marcus, but not hiding. Claire noticed her immediately. "And this is?" Claire asked, tone polite, distant, already evaluating. "Elodie," she said before Marcus could answer. "Neighbor." Claire's eyes lingered on her for a second longer than necessary. "Of course," she said. "That explains the state of the boundary." Marcus didn't react outwardly, but something in his posture tightened. "What do you want, Claire?" he asked. She looked back at him, expression sharpening slightly. "Efficiency." She reached into her bag, pulling out a folder and handing it to him. "The agreement. Revised." Marcus took it, but didn't open it immediately. "I told you I need time." "You have had time," she replied. "You chose to spend it here. That here is the asset you want me to sell." "Exactly," she said. "Which is why I'm surprised to see you treating it like a hobby instead of a transaction." Marcus opened the folder, scanning quickly. His jaw tightened almost instantly. "This buyer wasn't part of the original discussion," he said. "No," Claire replied. "This one is better. For you." "For both of us," she corrected smoothly. "They're offering above market value. Immediate acquisition. Clean exit." Marcus looked up at her. "And conditions?" "Full property. No divisions. No delays." His grip on the folder shifted slightly. Elodie spoke then, calm but firm. "What happens to the land after?" Claire didn't even look at her. "That's not relevant." "It is if you care about what you're selling," Elodie said. Claire's gaze finally moved to her again, slower this time. "I care about results," she said. "And this," a slight gesture toward the grove, "is not a sustainable model. It is if you know what you're doing." Claire's lips curved slightly. "Do you?" Marcus closed the folder. "That deal isn't happening," he said. Claire didn't react immediately. She studied him instead, as if confirming something she had already suspected. "You're emotionally compromised." "I'm being realistic." "You're being slow," she corrected. "And slow costs money." "I'm aware." "Clearly not enough." Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice slightly. "I said I need 3 weeks. And I'm telling you that you don't have them." Claire replied just as quietly. "That landed differently." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Explain." She held his gaze. "Your debt isn't static, Marcus. It's accumulating. Every day you delay increases the pressure." A slight pause. "On you. I can manage it." "No," she said. "You can't." The certainty in her tone was deliberate. Precise. Marcus felt it. "You don't get to decide that," he said. "I already did," she replied. That was the shift. Elodie watched the exchange closely, something in her expression tightening as she started to understand the dynamic. "What is she talking about?" she asked. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Claire did. "He owes my firm more than this place is currently worth," she said, almost casually. "Bad investments. Poor timing. A pattern, really." "That's enough," Marcus said sharply. But the damage was already done. Elodie's gaze moved to him, searching now. "Is that true?" He didn't look at her. "Marcus." A beat. "Yes," he said. Silence followed. Not loud, but heavy. Claire stepped slightly to the side, creating space without actually leaving. "The offer solves everything," she said. "Your debt is cleared. My firm is satisfied. You walk away clean. And you get your bonus," Marcus added. She didn't deny it. "I get what I've earned. At my expense. At the cost of your mistakes," she corrected. Elodie stepped forward now, her voice quieter but more focused. "And if he doesn't sell?" Claire looked at her again, almost amused. "Then I initiate full recovery procedures." Marcus's jaw tightened. Elodie didn't look away. "Which means?" Claire held her gaze, then answered simply. "He loses everything." That settled it. No dramatics. No raised voices. Just fact. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again, steadier now. "I said I need time," he repeated. Claire studied him for a long second, then nodded once. "You have less than you think." She turned, walking back toward her car, then stopped halfway, glancing over her shoulder. "Oh," she added, almost as an afterthought. "Try not to let distractions interfere with your judgment." Her eyes flicked briefly toward Elodie. Then she got into the car. The engine started, smooth and controlled, and within seconds she was gone. Silence returned. But it wasn't the same. Elodie didn't move immediately. She stood there, arms loosely at her sides, looking at the space where the car had been. Then, slowly, she turned to Marcus. "You were going to tell me?" she asked. Marcus exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I I was going to handle it. That's not what I asked. He met her gaze finally. No, he said. A pause. Then she nodded once. Not agreement. Not acceptance. Just acknowledgement. That changes things, she said. Marcus didn't argue. Because it did. The silence after Claire left didn't fade. It stayed, pressed into the air like something physical. Marcus stood near the edge of the grove, hands on his hips, staring at nothing in particular. For the first time since arriving, the numbers in his head weren't stable. They kept shifting. Elodie was still there. Not close, not far. Just present. You should have told me, she said finally. Marcus didn't look at her. It wouldn't have changed anything. It changes everything, she replied. That made him turn slightly. No, it just adds noise. Her expression tightened. Dead isn't noise. I know what dead is, he said sharply, then immediately lowered his voice. I live in it. A pause. Elodie studied him for a moment, then spoke more carefully. She's not just pressuring you financially. Marcus gave a short, humorless breath. That's her job. No, she said. That's her strategy. That landed differently. He looked at her fully now. Explain. She's not trying to make you sell, Elodie said. She's trying to make you desperate enough to sell badly. Marcus frowned slightly. Same outcome. Not the same consequences, she replied. He looked away again, jaw tightening. You're overanalyzing her. I recognize her type, Elodie said. People like that don't rush unless they're afraid of losing control. Marcus gave a faint, bitter smile. Claire doesn't lose control. That's what she wants you to believe. That silence was heavier. Marcus exhaled slowly. Even if you're right, it doesn't matter, he said. The debt is real. The deadline is real. And your decision? She asked. He hesitated. That was enough of an answer. Elodie stepped closer now, stopping just within conversational distance. You said you came here to sell, she said. I did. And now? Marcus didn't answer immediately. The wind moved through the trees again, slower this time, almost cautious. I don't know, he admitted finally. That was the first time he said it out loud. Elodie didn't react dramatically. No satisfaction. No victory. Just observation. That's dangerous, she said. I'm aware. You're still trying to solve it like a spreadsheet. Marcus let out a short breath. That's because spreadsheets don't lie to me. People don't either, she said. He gave her a look. That's optimistic. It's selective, she corrected. That earned a faint, reluctant exhale from him. Almost a laugh, but not quite. A pause followed. Then Elodie spoke again, softer now. Why did you come back here, Marcus? He frowned slightly. I told you. Funeral. Sale. No, she said. That's logistics. Not reason. He didn't respond immediately. His eyes drifted toward the house in the distance. I didn't plan to stay, he said finally. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Elodie studied him for a long moment, then nodded slightly. You're avoiding it. I'm managing it, he corrected. That's avoidance with better vocabulary. He turned toward her again, more direct now. What do you want me to say? The truth, she replied. Marcus looked down briefly, then back up. The truth is I left this place because I couldn't breathe in it, he said. And now I'm here again, and somehow it feels worse and better at the same time. Elodie didn't interrupt. That's not useful, he added immediately, as if correcting himself. It's honest, she said. He shook his head slightly. Honesty doesn't fix the debt. No, she agreed. But it fixes your decisions. That made him pause. He looked at her longer this time. You think I'm choosing wrong, he said. I think you're choosing fast, she corrected. That's what I have. No, she said. That's what you're used to. The words hung between them. Marcus looked away again, this time slower. You don't understand what's at stake, he said quietly. I understand more than you think, she replied. He glanced back at her. Do you? Yes, she said simply. Because if you sell this land the way she wants, it won't just disappear on paper. It will disappear here. She tapped her chest lightly, where it actually matters. Marcus didn't respond immediately. That part didn't fit into his models. It didn't calculate cleanly. I can't just ignore the debt, he said again, but quieter now. No one said you should, Elodie replied. Another pause. Then she added, but you can decide who you're paying it to. That stayed. Marcus looked toward the grove again, slower this time. The trees moved slightly in the wind. Alive. Still here. He exhaled. This is getting complicated, he said. It was always complicated, she replied. He nodded once, almost to himself. Yeah, he said quietly. I'm starting to see that. They stood there for a moment longer without speaking. Not distant, not close, just aligned in something neither of them fully controlled yet. Then Marcus turned slightly toward the trees. "Show me the next section," he said. Elodie raised a brow. "Now?" "Yes," he replied. "If I'm going to understand this properly, I need to see everything." A small pause. Then she nodded. "Follow me," she said. And this time he did. Marcus didn't notice they had walked further until the ground itself changed. The soil became richer, darker, more stable under his boots. The air felt slightly different too, less dry, more balanced, as if this part of the estate had been treated with more care than everything else combined. He slowed down instinctively, eyes scanning the trees. Older trunks, better spacing, healthier crowns. This section had not survived by accident. "What is this place?" Marcus asked, voice lower than before. Elodie didn't answer immediately. She stepped ahead of him, fingers brushing lightly against a tree trunk as if greeting something familiar. "You're already standing on it," she said. Marcus frowned. "That's not what I asked." She looked back at him. "It's the Golden Slope." The name meant nothing to him at first. Then it lingered, like something he should have known but didn't. "Never seen it in any documents," he said. "It wouldn't be there," she replied. Marcus stepped closer, eyes narrowing slightly as he studied the layout. "If this section produces better yield, it should be central to valuation." "It is," she said calmly. "Then why separate it like this?" Elodie hesitated for the first time since they'd started walking. "Not much, just enough to signal this wasn't ordinary information." "Because your father didn't treat it like production land," she said. Marcus gave a short, skeptical breath. "Then what did he treat it as?" She turned fully toward him now. "Something he protected." That word didn't sit well with him. Marcus crossed his arms. "Protected how?" "With decisions," she said. "With work. With time." He let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "That's not an answer." "It is," she replied. "You just don't like it." A pause settled between them. Marcus looked back at the slope. "You've been maintaining this section too?" "Yes." "Why?" Her gaze didn't waver. "Because he asked me to." That made him stop. "Asked you?" Marcus repeated slowly. "Yes." "Not me." "No." The silence that followed was sharper now. Marcus looked at her carefully. "Explain." Elodie exhaled softly, as if choosing her words carefully for the first time. "Years ago, when the rest of the estate started failing, your father focused his effort here. He said if everything else collapsed, this part needed to survive." Marcus frowned. "That still doesn't explain the separation." "It wasn't just land to him," she said. "It was a promise." Marcus narrowed his eyes slightly. "A promise to who?" Elodie didn't answer immediately. "Then, to me." That landed differently. Marcus blinked once, slowly. "To you." "Yes." He turned slightly away, processing that. "That's not legally binding." "I know. And you're telling me this now, because?" "Because you're here to decide what it's worth," she said. Marcus looked back at her sharply. "Everything here has a price. That's the reality." "No," she corrected. "That's your reality." Marcus stepped closer to the slope again, scanning it with renewed attention. But this time, the calculation felt different. Less clean. "If this was promised verbally," he said, "then it has no impact on ownership." "I didn't say it did," she replied. "Then what's the point of telling me?" Elodie held his gaze steadily. "Because you need to understand what you're selling before you decide to sell it." Marcus didn't respond immediately. The wind moved through the trees, slower here. Controlled. Almost intentional. He exhaled through his nose. "He never mentioned any of this to me." "I know," she said quietly. That silence stretched again, heavier than before. Marcus looked across the Golden Slope. The trees here didn't feel like assets. They felt maintained for something that wasn't purely economic. "That changes valuation," he said finally, but his tone lacked conviction. "Yes," she replied. "And increases buyer interest." "Yes." "And complicates ownership narratives." "Yes." He turned back toward her. "You realize what this does, right?" "I do." "It makes the sale more valuable. It also makes it more personal," she said. That word again. Personal. Marcus looked away briefly, jaw tightening. "I came here to resolve a financial problem," he said. "And now?" she asked. He paused. Longer than before. "Now it's not just that," he admitted. Elodie nodded once, like she expected that answer. Marcus glanced back at the slope one more time. "This doesn't change the legal structure," he said, more to convince himself than her. No, she agreed. But it changes what I'm actually deciding. Yes, she said again. Silence. Then Marcus exhaled slowly. All right, he said. Elodie raised a brow slightly. All right, what? He looked at the trees. I need to understand everything he was protecting here, he said. And then, she asked. Marcus hesitated. Then, quietly. Then I decide what this place actually is. For the first time, Elodie didn't respond immediately. She just nodded. And that was enough for now. Marcus knew something had changed the moment he saw Elodie's face. Not anger. Not surprise. Distance. She was standing near the edge of the grove, arms crossed, looking at him like she was trying to confirm something she didn't want to be true. You were speaking with her again, she said. Marcus slowed his pace. Claire. Yes. He stopped a few meters away. She came to push the deal. That's all. That's never all with people like her, Elodie replied. She left. And you didn't tell me she came back. That landed sharper than he expected. I didn't think it was relevant, he said. That's your problem, Elodie replied immediately. You decide what affects other people without asking them. Marcus frowned. That's not what's happening. It is exactly what's happening. A pause stretched between them, tighter than before. Marcus rubbed his jaw slightly. She's applying pressure. That's it. Financial pressure? Elodie asked. Yes. An emotional manipulation? Marcus hesitated for half a second too long. Elodie saw it. Her expression shifted slightly. So she is here again. It's business, he said. No, she replied. It's control. Marcus stepped forward slightly. You don't understand how this works. I understand her, Elodie said. People like her don't negotiate. They isolate. That word hit something in him. Isolate, he repeated. Yes, she said. From people who make you question what you already decided. Marcus stared at her. You think that's what you are? A pause. Not dramatic. Just heavy. Elodie didn't answer immediately. Then, I think I'm the only one here not benefiting from your decision. That silence after was different. Marcus looked at her more carefully now. That's not fair. I didn't ask for fair, she said. His voice lowered slightly. I'm trying to fix a situation you weren't part of. I became part of it the moment you stayed. That landed harder than anything Claire had said. Marcus stepped back slightly, running a hand through his hair. This is exactly what she wants, he said. You reacting like this. Elodie's eyes narrowed slightly. So now I'm part of her strategy? No, Marcus said quickly. That's not what I meant. But that's how you framed it. He stopped, realizing. Elodie took a step closer now, voice steadier but sharper. Do you know what she told me? Marcus didn't answer. She said you were using me. Elodie continued. Marcus immediately shook his head. That's not true. I know, she said. That surprised him. A beat. Then she added. But she didn't need it to be true. She just needed it to make sense in my head. Marcus frowned. And you believed her? I didn't say that. But you're standing here like you're not sure anymore. Silence. That was enough of an answer. Marcus let out a slow breath. You think I came here with an agenda? I think you came here with urgency, she said. And urgency makes people predictable. That's not me, he said. It is when you're cornered. That word again. Cornered. Marcus looked away briefly, jaw tightening. You think I'm choosing between you and her, he said quietly. I think she already made that choice for you, Elodie replied. That stopped him completely. He looked back at her. No one makes that choice for me. Then prove it, she said. Marcus didn't answer immediately, because something about that demand wasn't financial. It wasn't strategic. It was personal. He exhaled slowly. This is getting out of control. No, Elodie said. This is getting clear. He shook his head slightly. You're reacting emotionally. And you're not reacting at all, she replied. That landed. Marcus went quiet. The wind moved through the grove, but it felt sharper now. I'm trying to protect what's left here, he said. From who? She asked immediately. Another pause. Marcus didn't answer fast enough. That hesitation said more than words could. Elodie nodded once, slowly. That's what I thought, she said. Marcus stepped forward slightly. Don't do this. Do what, she asked. Turn this into a choice I can't win. She looked at him directly. It already is. Silence. Longer this time. He lowered his voice. I came here to fix a problem. And you created another one, she said. Marcus didn't deny it. That was the moment something between them broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but cleanly. Elodie stepped back slightly. I can't do this like this, she said. Marcus frowned. Like what? Like I'm part of a calculation. He took a breath. You're not. but it sounded weaker than he intended. She shook her head slightly. Then stop treating me like I am. Marcus looked at her, but didn't move closer. I didn't plan for this, he said quietly. Neither did I, she replied. A beat. Then Elodie turned slightly away. I need space, she said. Marcus didn't stop her. He just stood there as she walked back toward her side of the grove. And for the first time since arriving, the silence didn't feel like presence. It felt like distance. Marcus didn't go back to the house right away. He stayed in the grove until the light started shifting, until the sun dropped lower and the shadows between the trees became longer and less stable. When he finally moved, it wasn't decisively. It was automatic. One step, then another, like momentum rather than choice. The house greeted him the same way it always did. Quiet, slightly too still, air that hadn't been properly refreshed in years. He didn't turn on extra lights. He didn't make the space more comfortable. He went straight to the table and sat down. Laptop opened. No hesitation. The screen lit his face in a cold, controlled glow. Marcus stared at the email from Claire for a long time before touching it. Not because he didn't know what it contained. Because he did. He opened it. The terms appeared instantly. Structured, clean, precise. Everything reduced to numbers that pretended neutrality. Marcus scanned line by line. His expression didn't change at first. That was habit. Professional discipline. The ability to stay unaffected while absorbing pressure. But slowly, that discipline started to fracture. Not emotionally, but structurally. Every clause carried implication. Every condition narrowed his options. He leaned back slightly in his chair. This is timed, he muttered. Not emotional timing. Financial timing. Controlled pressure disguised as opportunity. His phone rang. Claire. He looked at it for a second, then answered. Marcus stood still with the phone in his hand for a long moment before setting it down. No reaction. No relief. No anger. Just containment. Marcus didn't sign immediately. He didn't move for several minutes after the call ended. The laptop screen was still open in front of him, but the document no longer felt like a negotiation. It felt like a point of no return that had already been crossed, just not confirmed. Outside, the grove was visible through the window, steady, unchanged, indifferent to the fact that everything around it had narrowed into a single irreversible decision. Marcus finally placed his hand on the trackpad. His fingers were steady, the phantom weight of the pruning shears still pressing into his palm. But instead of moving toward the signature field, he closed the document. Then he opened a new window. Not Claire's email. A blank legal form. His jaw tightened slightly as he began typing. Not fast. Not emotional. Controlled. Each line was deliberate. Not a response. A reversal. The next hours were quiet in a different way. Not waiting quiet. Execution quiet. When Claire called again, Marcus didn't answer immediately. He let it ring once, then twice, then accepted. Marcus. Her voice was sharper now. Less controlled. Tell me you haven't done something irrational. I didn't sign, he said. A pause. That pause was the first crack. You understand what that means, she said. Yes, Marcus replied. No, Claire said immediately. You think you do? You don't. Marcus leaned back slightly in his chair. I redirected the settlement structure. Longer this time. What did you do? She asked slower now. I closed my personal exposure, he said. Not by selling the estate. By restructuring my obligations through liquidation of external assets. Another pause. Then Claire. You just removed yourself as a controllable variable. Yes, he said. For the first time, her voice shifted completely. That was not your decision to make alone, she said. It was, Marcus replied. A breath on the other side. Controlled, but no longer stable. You've destroyed the deal, she said. I've changed it, he corrected. The 50% loss you mentioned, Marcus said, his voice flat. Consider it the price of the exit. The golden slope stays off your ledger, Claire. It's the only asset here that isn't for sale. I'm sending the authorization to liquidate my London holdings now. The flat and the portfolio will cover my debt to the firm in full. You get your recovery, and I keep the title to Lucers. We're done. Marcus stood up slowly, walking toward the window. I know, he said. And you think this is acceptable? No, he said quietly. I think it's final. Silence. Then Claire, colder again. You've effectively ended your position in London, Claire said, her voice tight. I've settled it, Marcus replied. I've authorized the full liquidation of my London assets to cover the firm's debt. Take the flat and the portfolio. It's enough to clear my name. But the title to Lucers stays with me, and the Golden Slope stays with Elodie. We're done, Claire. Click. She ended the call. Elodie didn't arrive immediately. When she did, she didn't ask questions first. She simply looked at him, taking in the absence of urgency in his posture. You didn't sign, she said. No, Marcus replied. A pause. Then she added, and she knows. Yes. You chose the land, Elodie said carefully. Marcus shook his head slightly. I chose not to reduce it to debt. That distinction mattered. She studied him for a long moment. And your life in London? She asked. Marcus gave a faint, tired exhale. Already gone. That's not an answer, she said. It is, he replied. Just not the one I used to give. A long pause followed. Then Elodie stepped closer, not cautiously, not uncertain. Just present. You understand what this means here, she said. Marcus nodded once. Yes. The farm survives, she said. Yes. And so do I, she added. Marcus looked at her directly. And so do I. That landed differently. Not as outcome. As alignment. Elodie didn't smile. Not immediately. But something in her expression softened just slightly. You stayed, she said. Marcus nodded. Not by accident. A pause. Then she exhaled slowly. My father would have called that stubborn. Marcus gave a faint, almost invisible smile. Sounds accurate. She looked past him, toward the window, toward the grove. Another silence. Not empty. Settled. Finally, Elodie turned back to him. And you? She asked quietly. Marcus looked at the land outside. Not as asset. Not as burden. Just as place. I'm here, he said simply. He looked at the grove, not as a line on a spreadsheet, but as a future that smelled of dust and crushed leaves. Elodie didn't smile. She simply reached down and picked up a pair of heavy work gloves, tossing them toward him. Don't think this makes us even, Marcus, she said, her voice steady. We have work to do. He caught them, the leather rough against his skin. I know. That was the end of it. Not dramatic. Not loud. Final in a way that didn't require confirmation.